History remembers her merely as a painted temptress, a symbol of seduction who used beauty to manipulate men. This popular image is entirely a historical illusion. Archaeology reveals a completely different reality. She was a brilliant, ruthless political mastermind who engineered a massive cultural takeover and almost eradicated a nation's ancient faith. This is the true story of Queen Jezebel. It is a terrifying chronicle of ultimate power, religious conflict, and a divine judgment that shook the ancient world. Her dark legacy began along the wealthy Mediterranean coast. Born a Phoenician princess, she grew up in Tyre, an ancient maritime superpower dominated by wealth and idolatry. Phoenicia was the center of Baal worship. The storm god was praised for bringing rain and agricultural prosperity, while sacred prostitution and blood sacrifices defined their rituals. Young Jezebel absorbed this brutal religious worldview. To her, gods were not just spiritual guides. They were absolute forces of nature, demanding complete submission and earthly domination. Ancient Near Eastern royal daughters were political pawns. Around 874 BC, King Ahab of Israel sought a strategic alliance to secure his rapidly expanding borders. Marrying Jezebel seemed like a masterstroke of ancient diplomacy. It guaranteed lucrative trade routes and military backing from the most powerful coastal cities of that historical era. However, this diplomatic triumph proved to be a spiritual catastrophe. The biblical record clearly states that Ahab did more evil than any king who ruled before him. Jezebel refused to assimilate into the local culture. She arrived in Israel fiercely determined to establish her native gods, demanding that Yahweh's people worship Baal and Asherah. King Ahab passively enabled her aggressive religious campaign. He built a massive temple for Baal directly in Samaria, effectively replacing the ancient covenant with a foreign religion. This was not merely about adding new deities. It was a hostile, systematic eradication of the biblical faith, attributing Yahweh's supreme sovereignty to a pagan storm god. Jezebel launched a brutal extermination campaign against true prophets. Faithful believers were hunted down and slaughtered, forcing the survivors to hide deep within dark, isolated mountain caves. While the righteous starved in secret hiding places, the queen openly funded 850 pagan priests. They feasted at her royal table, projecting absolute authority. Into this terrifying darkness stepped a rugged outsider. Elijah, the Tishbite, emerged from the wilderness, bearing a name that literally meant Yahweh is my only true God. Elijah confronted the passive king with a devastating curse. He declared that no rain would fall upon the land for years, except by his own prophetic command. This drought was a direct attack on Baal's territory. By completely shutting up the heavens, Yahweh humiliated the alleged storm god and exposed his total cosmic impotence. For 3 agonizing years, the ancient land burned. Crops withered away, livestock perished in the dust, and desperate citizens cried out for relief from the endless famine. Despite the overwhelming national suffering, Jezebel remained completely unrepentant. She intensified her deadly persecution, desperately hunting the prophet who had humiliated her powerful gods and royal court. God commanded Elijah to face the hostile king again. Ahab angrily accused the prophet of destroying the nation, blaming him entirely for the severe and lasting drought. Elijah fiercely rejected the king's baseless political accusations. He declared that Ahab's absolute surrender to Jezebel's idolatrous religion had brought this catastrophic judgment upon the whole nation. The prophet demanded a massive showdown on Mount Carmel. He challenged the hundreds of pagan priests to prove their divine power before the exhausted, doubting Israelite population. Elijah presented a simple but deadly spiritual test. 2 sacrificial bulls were placed on wooden altars, and the true deity would have to answer by sending fire. The pagan priests danced and screamed for hours. They slashed their own flesh with sharp swords, bleeding heavily onto the dry ground as their storm god remained silent. The prophet mocked their loud, frantic, and bloody rituals. He sarcastically suggested that their mighty God was simply sleeping, traveling abroad, or perhaps too busy to listen. As evening approached, Elijah calmly repaired the broken altar. He arranged 12 ancient stones representing Israel's tribes, reminding the gathered crowds of their forgotten, sacred historical covenant. To make the upcoming miracle completely undeniable, he acted boldly. He ordered the people to drench the entire sacrifice and the surrounding trench with precious, scarce water. Elijah offered a brief, powerful prayer to the heavens. He asked the ancient God of Abraham to reveal his supreme reality and turn the nation's heart back. Instantly, blinding supernatural fire descended from the open sky. It completely incinerated the sacrificial meat, the soaked wood, the heavy stones, and every drop of standing water. The terrified spectators immediately fell flat on their faces. They loudly confessed that Yahweh was the only true Lord, completely abandoning their misguided allegiance to foreign idols. Following the strict ancient laws against destructive spiritual treason, Elijah commanded the crowd to capture every false priest, executing them all down in the nearby Kishon Valley. When Ahab informed his queen about the humiliating massacre, she exploded with terrifying wrath. She immediately dispatched an assassin with a chilling, irrevocable death warrant for Elijah. Jezebel swore a bloody oath by her defeated gods. She promised to slaughter the victorious prophet within 24 hours, completely ignoring the recent display of divine supremacy. Her reaction brilliantly exposed her deeply arrogant, stubborn nature. She chose absolute political defiance over spiritual repentance, determined to maintain her fierce grip on the crumbling kingdom. To acknowledge Yahweh's victory meant losing her entire identity. She preferred to risk absolute destruction rather than admit her powerful religious empire was built on worthless lies. Surprisingly, the powerful prophet who boldly commanded fire from heaven was suddenly paralyzed by human terror. Elijah fled rapidly into the unforgiving wilderness to escape Jezebel. Exhausted and completely broken, the great prophet collapsed under a solitary desert shrub. He begged God to end his miserable life, feeling utterly defeated and alone. Rather than rebuking his despair, God gently ministered to Elijah's physical exhaustion. An angel provided baked bread and fresh water, sustaining him for the long journey. Traveling 40 days to Mount Horeb, Elijah finally heard the quiet whisper of Yahweh. God gently reminded the tired prophet that his sacred mission was not finished. The Lord revealed a hidden, hopeful truth to encourage his weary servant. 7,000 faithful Israelites had secretly refused to bow their knees to the pagan Baal. Meanwhile, the royal court demonstrated the terrifying reality of Jezebel's absolute power. One chilling episode involving a local vineyard exposed her total contempt for Israelite justice. A humble man named Naboth owned a beautiful vineyard in Jezreel. It was located conveniently close to King Ahab's luxurious summer palace, sparking the king's selfish greed. Ahab demanded the property for a royal vegetable garden, offering money or a trade. Naboth firmly refused, strictly citing ancient religious laws regarding sacred ancestral inheritance. In ancient Israel, ancestral land was considered a divine trust from Yahweh. Keeping the property within the original tribe was a sacred duty, not mere stubbornness. The powerful monarch reacted like a spoiled, petulant child denied a simple toy. Ahab returned to his palace, sullenly lay on his bed, and stubbornly refused food. When Queen Jezebel discovered her husband pouting over a minor land dispute, she was disgusted. Her chilling response perfectly captured her ruthless, tyrannical approach to absolute monarchy. She sharply mocked Ahab's weak leadership and promised to secure the vineyard herself. The cunning queen immediately orchestrated a highly organized, completely legalistic, and deadly judicial murder. Jezebel wrote official letters using the king's name and sealed them with his authority. She commanded the local elders to proclaim a fast and publicly honor Naboth. During this public assembly, 2 paid scoundrels were secretly hired to commit perjury. They falsely testified that innocent Naboth had openly cursed both God and the king. The corrupted city elders followed the wicked queen's exact instructions without any hesitation. They dragged Naboth outside the city gates and brutally stoned him to death. To ensure the property seizure was completely permanent and legally uncontested, they killed his sons. Naboth's entire family line was extinguished to satisfy a royal vegetable garden. Hearing the bloody deed was done, Jezebel coldly instructed her husband to rise. She proudly announced that the stubborn vineyard owner was dead, urging Ahab to take possession. As King Ahab greedily walked through his newly stolen property, Yahweh intervened. God sent Elijah to confront the wicked monarch directly inside the blood-stained ancestral vineyard. The king recognized his ancient enemy immediately, greeting the prophet with bitter hostility. Elijah fearlessly condemned Ahab for completely selling his soul to do profound evil. The prophet delivered a gruesome, terrifying divine sentence upon the greedy king. Dogs would lick up Ahab's royal blood in the exact place where Naboth was murdered. The divine judgment against the wicked queen was even more horrifying and graphic. Elijah declared that wild scavenging dogs would eventually devour Jezebel's flesh by the city wall. Terrified by this grim prophetic doom, Ahab actually demonstrated genuine, unexpected remorse. He tore his royal garments, dressed in scratchy sackcloth, and walked around in meek submission. Because the king showed temporary humility, God mercifully delayed the ultimate dynastic destruction. The complete annihilation of Ahab's bloody royal house would occur during his son's reign. 3 years later, arrogant Ahab foolishly entered a fierce battle against the Arameans. Although he cleverly disguised himself, a random, unguided arrow deeply pierced his royal armor. The wounded king stubbornly propped himself up in his chariot until sunset, then died. When servants washed his blood-stained chariot, scavenging dogs licked the crimson water. Even after her husband's violent death, Jezebel maintained a fierce grip on power. She ruled as the powerful queen mother through the successive reigns of her 2 sons. Her destructive influence even poisoned the neighboring southern kingdom of Judah. Her ruthless daughter Athaliah married the Judean king, spreading the infectious Baal worship even further. Time passed, and the great prophet Elijah was taken up into the heavens. His dedicated protege Elisha inherited the dangerous prophetic mantle and the ongoing mission. The time for Yahweh's ultimate vengeance against the wicked house of Ahab finally arrived. Elisha sent a young prophet to secretly anoint an aggressive military commander named Jehu. The young prophet poured sacred oil on Jehu and delivered a bloody mandate. Jehu was commanded to totally destroy Ahab's descendants and avenge the slaughtered prophets. Jehu immediately launched a fiercely rapid and brutally violent military coup against the crown. He assassinated King Joram of Israel and King Ahaziah of Judah without hesitation. After shedding the royal blood of 2 kings, the furious general rode toward Jezreel. The aging queen mother Jezebel was waiting inside the heavily fortified royal summer palace. News of the bloody coup reached Jezebel. Knowing her violent end was imminent, she refused to cower in fear or beg the rebel general for any desperate mercy. She carefully painted her eyes, beautifully arranged her hair, and stepped proudly to the high window. This was no vain act of a desperate, frightened older woman. In those final terrifying moments, Jezebel deliberately chose to face her brutal death, not as a helpless victim, but with absolute royal dignity and fierce, unyielding defiance. As Jehu aggressively entered the palace gates, she loudly called out from above. She sarcastically asked if the violent murderer of his own master came in peace. This was a highly calculated political insult. She directly compared Jehu to a previous failed assassin who briefly reigned for only 7 days before being completely overthrown. Jehu ignored her sharp, taunting words. He looked up at the high palace window and demanded to know exactly who among the royal attendants stood on his side. Several palace eunuchs looked down at the rebel general. Jehu fiercely commanded them to throw the wicked queen down onto the hard cobblestones of the royal courtyard. They shoved Jezebel from the high window. Her falling body crashed violently against the stone wall, leaving her royal blood violently spattered across the magnificent palace facade. Jehu coldly trampled her broken body beneath his chariot horses. The victorious general then casually walked inside the conquered palace to enjoy a celebratory meal and drink. After finishing his feast, Jehu suddenly remembered royal protocol. He ordered his men to bury the cursed woman, acknowledging that she was, after all, a king's daughter. But when the royal servants went outside to collect her corpse, they found a gruesome scene. Scavenging street dogs had completely devoured the once powerful, wealthy queen. They recovered only her skull, her feet, and her hands. The brutal prophecy spoken by Elijah years earlier had been fulfilled with absolute terrifying and bloody precision. The dramatic saga of Queen Jezebel is ancient history, yet it breathes with urgent relevance. It remains a profound warning about unyielding power, spiritual corruption, and moral compromise. Her reign shows what happens when nations abandon their sacred foundations. What began as a strategic political alliance ultimately ended in total moral and catastrophic cultural collapse. Jezebel forcefully imported foreign gods and fundamentally destructive values. She systematically dismantled the ancient truths that Israel was originally meant to protect, cherish, and boldly represent worldwide. Ahab watched this spiritual destruction with passive weakness. He completely understood the truth, but fatally lacked the moral courage to stand firmly against his wife's aggressive evil. Together, they established a toxic cultural environment. It was a dark kingdom where evil flourished unchecked, absolute truths were silenced, and innocent lives were casually, brutally destroyed. This is not merely a dusty story from 3 millennia ago. It functions as a clear mirror, reflecting dangerously similar patterns operating within our modern global society. We live in an increasingly relativistic era. Absolute moral standards are routinely dismissed, and timeless, foundational truths are constantly traded for shifting cultural trends and personal preferences. Today, we witness the systematic replacement of historical religious foundations with secular ideologies. Sacred spaces are frequently converted into mere museums or secular community entertainment centers globally. Just as Jezebel forcefully marginalized the worship of Yahweh, modern societies often actively promote conflicting ideologies while increasingly silencing and marginalizing traditional, historical biblical faith and values. Perhaps the most terrifying aspect is not the presence of evil, but the widespread existence of Ahab's weakness. Spiritual abdication allows destructive cultural forces to easily triumph. We see modern leaders who clearly understand what is right, but lack the political or spiritual spine to boldly defend the truth against aggressive, loud cultural opposition. Parents witness their children absorbing destructive ideologies, but remain silent to avoid conflict. Religious leaders water down sacred texts merely to appease their easily offended modern congregations. Evil never triumphs solely through the wicked actions of tyrants. It primarily succeeds through the cowardly silence, passive inaction, and dangerous compromise of supposed defenders of truth. This brings us to the theological concept of the Jezebel spirit. It represents a destructive behavioral pattern seeking to unlawfully control, manipulate, and dominate human social structures. This destructive influence transcends gender entirely. It operates through intense, insatiable hunger for absolute control, utilizing deceptive charm when convenient and ruthless intimidation when resistance is encountered. It naturally rebels against all legitimate authority while simultaneously seizing illegitimate power. It actively seduces people away from foundational truth, leading them directly into modern ideological idolatry. Most distinctively, this toxic spirit operates without any genuine shame or remorse. It fiercely refuses accountability, violently rejects necessary correction, and never displays true, heartfelt, transforming repentance. We see this influence operating dynamically in modern relationships. It surfaces when individuals completely undermine divinely ordained family structures, insisting on selfish control rather than mutual submission. It thrives when designated leaders abdicate their responsibilities. Yielding to personal selfishness creates severe dysfunction, widely opening the doors for bitter strife, manipulation, and catastrophic familial rebellion. In spiritual communities, it manifests through arrogant leaders demanding unquestionable authority. They heavily weaponize religious language to manipulate followers and quickly destroy anyone challenging their toxic narratives. In media and culture, this spirit drives entertainment that actively glorifies profound immorality. It routinely mocks traditional purity while promoting narratives that deliberately suppress objective, historical truths. The ancient story of Jezebel does not end in wicked triumph. It concludes with her absolute destruction and the ultimate, undeniable vindication of God's sovereign, righteous justice. Evil forces may prosper for a brief, dark season, but they will never rule eternally. Divine justice, though sometimes seemingly delayed, is always absolutely certain and unavoidable. Our modern world desperately needs new prophetic voices. We need courageous, uncompromising reformers willing to speak absolute truth loudly, regardless of the heavy personal or societal costs. This ancient narrative remains a vital historical warning. But it is also a powerful invitation, offering genuine hope that divine truth will ultimately overcome every dark deception. The ultimate question echoes through the ages. Will you boldly join the faithful remnant, or will you passively bow to the false idols of this modern era?